All right, testing, check. 1, 2. How we doing? All right, testing. Sounds good. Let me get the thing going. Boom. All right. Hello and welcome to another Wednesday song feedback stream. This is what we do here on Wednesdays. You guys send me tracks and I take a listen to them. And then I give you my thoughts and opinions about those songs that you sent to me. So before we dive into it, before we get started, I want to let you guys know a little bit about the rules or guidelines for the feedback stream, in case anybody is joining us for the first time. What's up, After Party? How you doing today? So the general things you should know about the feedback streams. Number one, original tracks only, for a variety of reasons, mostly because of like copyright strikes, and YouTube's really weird about that stuff, and I don't want to have to deal with it. The other reason is if I don't know the track that you're remixing, it's really hard for me to tell what is you and what is the remix, and or what is the original song. So no remixes. What's up, Daniel? How you doing? Ideally, I would prefer works in progress, and that way you can go back in and make changes before you finally release the project or the song. If you don't have anything like that and you are just have stuff you've released recently, that's totally fine too. I don't mind giving feedback on finished tracks, but it's better and usually works out better if it's still a work in progress. On top of that, if you are getting feedback on a track, it is highly encouraged but not required for you to give feedback to other people. That way it's not just a one-way street of me just giving my thoughts, but everybody can help each other out and we can all kind of grow together as a community and learn together. And that's the whole goal here. And as far as feedback goes, things like it's good or I liked it don't really count as feedback unless you followed up with why. So let us know why you thought it was good, or what worked, what didn't work, did it remind you of anything? If this was your track, what would you do to it? That kind of stuff is really helpful for people to hear. Songs will be listened to in a first come, first serve basis. What's up, Ganya? It looks like Nightbot deleted you. I need to dial back Nightbot and make it chill out a little bit more. It keeps on muting people when it's not supposed to. But yeah, first come, first serve. Gonna go chronologically based off of who sent me a track first. If you are going to send me more than one track, wait till the end of the stream to send me the second track. That way I can make sure everybody gets through one time, and then we can go through doubles if people have more than one track they want to send in, which usually we have time for. On top of that, this video is with all of the other live streams that I do get posted to the channel. So if you want to go review your feedback later on, you can do that. On top of that, if you can't make it to a live stream, what's up, Julia? You are more than welcome to send a track in early, or go to the spreadsheet and early, and then that's how you can send me a track. And I totally forgot to link the spreadsheet in the chat. That's usually the first thing I'm supposed to do. Let me toss this in here. And then I'm going to pin that up to the top of the chat, and that way you guys all have access to it. But yeah, if you can't make it to a stream, you can always just follow that link and then send me a track whenever you want. There you go, Julia. It should be in there now. Boom, boom, boom. All right. And then finally, all feedback is free. I just do this for fun because I really like doing it, and it's I think a cool thing to do and a good way to kind of like grow the community together. However, if you enjoy the feedback and you want to help support the channel, you can do so by hitting the like button. You can subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. You can check out the website for info about like classes and workshops and things. You can join the Discord. You can join the Patreon if you really also want to help support the channel. We got extra streams on the Patreon, all kinds of cool stuff going on over there. And you can also super chat in YouTube. You can hit the little super chat button, and then that also works. But don't feel obligated to do that. This is totally free, but if you want to help support the channel, I definitely wouldn't mind that. You can also help support the channel by just sharing videos, like, share them on social media or whatever, Reddit, wherever. And that's also helped kind of spread the word. All right. Sweet. So with all of that stuff, the regular feedback announcements out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get started and start listening to some tracks. Starting with a track from Daniel. Pull this up here. Let's do this. And let me know if it's too light or too quiet or too loud. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. Talk a little more.
All right then. Rewind my selector.
I am here to say our house is on fire. I am here to say our house is on fire. I am here to say solving the climate crisis is the greatest and most complex challenge that Homo sapiens have ever faced. The main solution, however, is so simple that even a small child can understand it. We have to stop the emissions of greenhouse gases. I am here to say our house is on fire. I am here to say our house is on fire. I am here to say solving the climate crisis is the greatest and most complex challenge that Homo sapiens have ever faced. And on climate change, we have to acknowledge that we have failed. All political movements in their present form have done so. And the media has failed to create broad public awareness. But Homo sapiens have not yet failed. Yes, we are failing, but there is still time to turn everything around. Now we all have a choice. We can create transformational action that will safeguard the future living conditions for humankind. Or we can continue with our business as usual and fail. That is up to you and me. I am here to say we all have a choice. is up to you and me.
That's that hot shit.
Nice. I'm really digging the dub energy on this track. Overall, I think it's really solid. I think the use of vocals, I think use of delays is really cool. I think the whole thing grooves really well. The whole thing flows. It kind of like, it has this kind of like angry feel, but also like, because it also has that dubby groove, it also feels kind of laid back, which is like an interesting contrast. I think in terms of things that you might want to take a look at, I think the biggest thing for me straight off the top of my head is going to be that bass line. The main one that is for most of the song. I think it's cool, but I think two things. Number one, it's a little bit too loud. And number two, it gets a little bit repetitive. It's like the same couple notes over and over again. And I think that if you were to duplicate it, and then on the second iteration of it, you change up the note pattern a little bit. That way it's like, it becomes this, instead of going this really short loop, it becomes like a longer loop. And I think that'll work a lot better. So a little bit more variety in terms of what notes the bass is playing, and then turn it down a tiny bit. And I think that will, it'll fit in a little bit better. And I think it'll work better with the track. It also feels a tiny bit oversaturated. I think you could tone down, if you have some distortion or saturation on that, I think you could turn that down a tiny bit, and that would also, I think, work pretty well. Other than that, I think the other big thing that I was noticing was, like I mentioned earlier, using a lot of those dubby reverbs and delays. And I think sometimes it ends up being too much. It ends up being too many things that are bouncing around with the delays.
I am here to say
like there's a few background kind of percussive hits that just have tons of that dub reverb on it. And I think one of the things about dub music especially is that it's not just the presence of those reverbs and delays, but it's strategic when they happen. So some of those hits will have more of those reverbs and delays, and some will have less. And right now it sounds, for a lot of those sounds, it's just like you just cranked up the reverb and the delay and just let it sit there. And if you ever watch somebody like making dub music, they're riding the mixer and turning things up and down. So like this one snare will have tons of delay, and then this one hi-hat will have tons of reverb, but it's not just always. And that's a little bit what it sounds like right now with a lot of your kind of like background sounds, which I think are fantastic and they work really well. But I think be strategic about when you go really heavy with those reverbs and delays and when you go a little more subtle with it. And I think the dynamics and the variation between those will really help breathe a lot of life in this track. Other than that, I really liked it. I don't know. That snare that comes in right around there, to me, sounds a little bit aggressive for this kind of music, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
The greatest and most complex challenge that Homo sapiens have ever faced.
I like the guitars they have going on here. I think those could be a little bit louder in the mix. And if you wanted to add more guitar layers on top of that, I would not mind that. I think that could work really well. I love the bass line when it switches up there. I think you could maybe even sprinkle more of that bass line through the rest of the track, and that I wouldn't mind that. But yeah, those are the main things I'm noticing here. I think overall it sounds really cool. I love the chaos of it. I love the dubby feel of it. I think your use of vocal samples, as usual, is pretty on point.
We can continue.
The mix in this section feels a little bit lopsided. It feels like a lot of the percussive elements are sounding really loud, and things like the bass line and the guitars and even some of the vocal samples are a little bit quiet. So I think this section could use some more mixing and screwing around with. But in terms of what's happening in the section, I really like it.
With our business as usual and fail. That is up to you and me.
Yeah, I think once you get the kind of like basic gist of how you're gonna like dial in the rest of this track, I think there are a few more mixing things that need to be taken a look at. But I think those are more important once you get to the stage where you're fully mixing it. But I like what's going on here. Chat, you got any other thoughts, comments, ideas, questions? Let me know. All right, next up we got a track from After Party, and I think this is a track that I took a look at the other day during one of the Patreon streams. Shout out to After Party for being one of the Patreon supporters. If you guys want extra streams, you check that out. Yeah, no worries, Daniel. Nice. Sounds really good. I like the changes that you made to the drums. I think they sound so much better. I think they fit in with the track a lot better. I think the drums could go up a tiny bit in volume, and I wouldn't mind that. The only other piece of like critical feedback I really have here is right in here when the bass line comes in, you have this kind of call and response between your bass line and then this sonar sound. This guy. I have mixed feelings about the sonar sound. I think the first time it comes in, it feels a little bit jarring. It feels like it doesn't really live in the same world as the rest of the sounds in your track. But by the third time I hear the sonar sound, I'm like, oh, it's okay. So to me, it sticks out a little bit, and I think it doesn't sound as good as the next synth sound that comes in. Like that sonar sounds good. This sound here. And so I'm wondering if maybe you would want to consider replacing the sonar ping with the sound that comes in right around 2 minutes. Just playing a couple notes. But other than that, I love this track. I think it sounds really good. It's like, has a little bit of Boards of Canada, has a little bit of Weevil. Kind of reminds me of them a little bit. Some of their, especially newer stuff, kind of sounds like this. I think it's sounding really polished, other than literally just turn up the drums a tiny bit, and then optional, consider tweaking that sonar sound. Maybe make the sonar sound a little bit less, especially the very first sonar sound. Maybe make it a little bit less jarring somehow. Maybe filter it, because the last couple sonar sounds sound great, but the first one comes in a little strong, I think. Yeah, it's just the first two sonar pings, I think, sound out of place. The second two sound fine to me for some reason. So maybe just equal out the volume a little bit on, especially the first one, and a little bit on the second one. Yeah, filter out a tiny bit. I don't know. See if you can massage it a little bit to get it kind of fitting in a little bit better with what's going on. But other than that, I think that the synth work sounds great. The mix sounds great. The arrangement works really well. It's like this nice length where it stays interesting the whole way and doesn't get boring or repetitive, or kind of wear out its welcome, which I think sometimes with this style music is the something that people run into. But yeah, that's kind of it here. I feel like you're really honing in and you're really dialing in your sound pretty significantly, and it's getting to the point where I'm really having to like stretch to try to like come up with any critical feedback here. But you should definitely, if you haven't been already, like start prepping this stuff to send out to labels and things like that. I think it's getting to that point where I feel like you really just need to get it out into the world and start, you know, getting people listening to your tracks more. All right, so next up we got a track from Julio. Awesome. If there's anybody else who's just joining us and would like to send us a track, you can do so by clicking on the spreadsheet linked up at the top. Nice. So I also just realized that I've been calling you Julio, but it's probably Julio. Am I correct? Um, Either way, I feel like there are 2 or 3 key concepts that you are getting really close to implementing in your tracks, but they're not quite there yet. The first one is going to be arrangement. So as of right now, this is a 4-minute track roughly, but I think realistically, this could be a 2.5-minute track and would be much more effective. I think it would get a better job done. I feel like especially for the first minute or so, there's a few sections where we're getting like just the drum beat by itself for a really long time, which can work, but I think that everything feels really stretched out. So one of the things I want you to be thinking about is having reference tracks. Like it sounds like you're going for the genre of reggaeton, right? And so you know what you're going for. So what I want you to do is, as you are making music or before you're making music, pick a track that you really like in this style and listen to how long each section is and how long the whole song is. You know, how many bars is the intro? How many bars is the first verse? How many bars is the second verse? How many bars is the chorus? And write it down if you need to. Like sit there with a pen and paper and write it down, or drag it into your DAW and like just analyze it and just take a look at like, okay, how long should each section be, and what should the order of these sections be? So be thinking about arrangement, be thinking about how you want to put together your ideas, what order they want to be in. And when in doubt, if you ever get lost when it comes to putting together an arrangement, grab ideas from somebody else. Like you can't steal somebody else's track, right? You can't copy their melodies and you can't sample them. However, you can't copyright an arrangement. So you can be inspired by and you can get ideas from other people's arrangements and then implement them in your track. And that's a great way to just get better sounding arrangements. So that would be one of the first things that I would take a look at. The other thing is going to be like sound design, I think is going to be the other main thing. I feel like you are, I think we talked about this last week too. It sounds like you're designing all your sounds from scratch, especially like this sound over here. Dun, 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 dun. That little synth sound. I understand what you're going for with that sound, but it sounds a little bit thin and it sounds a little basic. So I think that by either using presets for your sound design to make something that sounds a bit bigger, that could go a really long way and really help fill out what's going on in this track. So sounds like that could use some work. It also could just be louder. It's really quiet right now. There's also not really like a melodic element in this song. And I think right here would be a great place to have more of like a melody happening. Oh, I guess this kind of comes and kind of does that. But same thing with this sound. This sound that comes in here, it feels a little bit muffled. It feels a little bit quiet, and it feels like it's not really being impactful in the way you need it to be for this style of music. So sound design and arrangement are the 2 things I want you working on. Kind of along the same lines, I really like this section here where I have these chords come in. And then from here onward, it actually works really well. So now we have these chords, we have the 2 different synth layers, we have the drums, we have like more complex combinations of sounds that makes this last section feels like it works a lot better than the sections that come before it. So I guess layering would be kind of the third thing. Just making sure you have enough layers here to keep it interesting. And then like layering and arrangement kind of are tied together here in a lot of ways, where you can have new layers come in and old layers come out and mix and match your different layers to create different combinations for your arrangement. And I think that's going to be really powerful for putting together an arrangement that works. So yes, those are the 3 things I want you to work on. And again, when in doubt, use reference tracks. Listen to other people's music. And again, you don't need to copy them, but you can learn from listening to, reggaeton tracks that you like and learn what to do and what not to do. And I think that's a fantastic way to kind of like better understand your own process and understand like what you're actually going for in your own track. But yeah, those are kind of the main things I'm thinking there. I think the drums honestly sound pretty good. I think that the big thing is the arrangement, the sound design / layering. And if you get those 3 things dialed in, the whole track is going to feel like it flows a lot better, and it's going to make a lot more sense. Yeah, so perfect. So listen. I do this all the time. If I get stuck with the track where I'm like, I don't know where to go from here. Like I've got a basic idea. I've got like 2 minutes of a song, and I'm like, I don't know what to do next. I'll just listen to lots of tracks, and then I will get inspiration from those tracks, and then use those ideas. Yeah, after party, we had a feedback stream last week. It should be, if you go to the playlist and then go to the live stream playlist, it should be in there. It does a weird thing where sometimes it puts them at the bottom of the playlist, and I have to manually put them at the top. So if you can't find it, go down to the bottom of the live stream playlist, and it might be down there. All right, next up we got a track from Gontia. I feel a feeling I might have to turn this down a bit. Yeah, Jason, no problem. Nice. As always, it sounds really dope. Your drums and your bass, spot on. Sounds really good. Don't touch them. They sound great. I do feel like this track is 3.5 minutes long. This could easily be a 4.5, 5 minute track, and I don't think I would get bored. I think you could really lean into like building up that that especially like before the first drop, and really extend that and build lots and lots of tension there before you like bring it in with the whole beat section. And then same thing for the second build. I think you could really play with tension here. I know with like, not necessarily this style of music, but in like trance or something like that, you can have these really long builds, and that's part of the whole thing is like you just like build and build and build and build. So I think you could extend those a bit, and I would definitely enjoy that. I think that the actual drops themselves sound pretty solid. Yeah, I think this works at 3.5 minutes. I think this is fine, but I think if it were me, I would make it longer. I think you got at least another minute in here of quality content if you wanted to spread it out. So this melody guy right here, I feel like it has a tiny bit too much unison on it. Either unison or chorus or whatever you're doing to give it that kind of fuzzy feel, to me feels a little bit too over the top. And I think if you dial that back a tiny bit, I think that would work really well. The other thing about this sound, some of the notes sound like they cut off. And it might be because it's monophonic and the next note's cutting off, or just the decay is not set right. Some of the notes have this nice long gentle decay out, so I would just check on that and make sure that they're not cutting each other off, or they're like, some of those notes they sound a little choppy to me, so just watch out for that. I also think that once you do one cycle of that melody, the next time it comes in, it should come in with another layer on top of it. So like either same sound an octave higher, so that way it just expands it out a little bit, or a slightly different sound that gets layered with it, playing the exact same notes. So that way, instead of hearing the same melody twice in a row, the second time it comes in, it feels like, oh, it's leveled up since the first time. And I think that'll help build energy right there. This part's cool. And then I love the part at 2 minutes. 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes is fantastic. I'm getting like almost kind of like Justice vibes from that, which is great. It's fantastic. Yeah, I think if you wanted to lean a little bit heavier into like the French house, Justice, kind of Baroque, Wendy Carlos feel, I think that could be really cool. And just add in lots of like crazy arpeggiations. I love this part, this build here. I think this build could be longer. I think you could like keep on going higher and higher frequencies with it. Yeah, that little part right there definitely could be longer. Yeah, and then I think for the final drop, one more new element should come in there. Just to, again, keep the energy building and building and building. I think that'll be really useful. Doesn't need to be super fancy, but one new layer, a vocal sample, a little something extra spicy at the end, I think will help out. But yeah, other than that, sounds fantastic. It's your synth work is sounding really good. Your mixes are sounding ultra clean. The masters sound ridiculously loud. It's it's crushing it across the board. It just take a look a little bit here and there into some of those minor things I said with the melody and maybe making the arrangement a little bit longer. But yeah, I'm digging it. Sweet. Chat, you got any other thoughts, comments, questions, ideas? Julio, it's good seeing you. Thanks for coming by. All right. Haven't seen this baby face for a while. Sorry, I turned it down for going. Yeah, let me turn back up. Nice. That was dope. I really like that. This one feels like it's a bit more of a, I don't know, it has a bit more like of a groove to it. It's like almost, it's like borderline danceable, which I think is awesome. Very IDM-y, definitely a little bit of Aphex Twin, a lot of kind of like interesting glitchy stuff. And I think that, I don't know, I feel like this is, you say it's just a sketch, but I feel like it's actually, it feels pretty well thought out. And I think that there's a few tweaks you can make here and there, but I think that like as a whole, this feels like a composition that makes a lot of sense to me. All right, Daniel, see you next time. So I think especially this part right here in the middle got like pretty groovy and was working really well. And I definitely feel like you could expand upon this area and really like turn this into like something that somebody could play at a club if you wanted. I think the section before it over here, like over here is like, it's cool, but it's like, it's still kind of weird. And then you like transfer from textures and noises into something that actually is like, oh, we can actually like groove to this, which is, I think, is a cool transition. Kind of reminds me a little bit of James Holden, some of his stuff where it's like, it's so weird, but you can also groove to it. I think that's like a cool place to be in. So yeah, so I really like this section here. I think that if you were to want to like continue working on this and expand on the dance section here, I think little tiny changes in the percussion to keep it grooving every 8 bars or 16 bars would go a really long way and like really be the icing on cake for this part. Because yeah, but everything else in this section I love. Just little more changes in the percussion here would go a long way. Other than that, yeah, especially with that hi-hat pattern, you're doing that kind of like the off-time housey hi-hat, and I think if you switched up that hi-hat a little bit, tossed in some shakers here and there, I would go a long way. That part, at first when I listened to this, I wasn't sure about that part, the weird like little kick drum build and then kind of resetting into the drum beat. But listening to it again, I actually really like it and I think it's really cool. And it's hard to give me feedback on this track because you're making a lot of interesting creative choices that I personally don't think that I would have made, but they work somehow. Like I said, it feels like James Holden, where it's like it's insanely out there sounds that somehow mesh together and create a cohesive thing. So I'm actually struggling to find things I would change besides make the groovy section more groovy. I think this section here feels like the weakest. And I think the percussion is a little bit loud throughout the whole track. That's something else I'll take a look at. I think this section needs 1 or 2 other sounds to help rotate between. Right now it sounds like it's mostly a kind of like bassy kind of sound, and then like a higher pitch sound, you're going back and forth. So having a few more sounds here in the mix that you can kind of like go back and forth between, I think will make this section feel like it fills out a bit better. And then once you get here on, I'm all in favor of this. Yeah, I think make this section more groovy, give it a little bit of a break, and then have another drum section, and then go to the outro if it were me. But other than that, that's kind of like how I'm feeling about this. Not a lot I would really change here, honestly. Yeah, a little bit less volume on the clap and the percussion throughout the whole thing, but especially during the intro. I also think this intro section could be a little bit shorter. It's like 35 seconds now. I think it could be 25 seconds and that'd be fine as well. And it gives you more room to add some more stuff going on over here once you get into the kind of like main meat and potatoes of the track. But yeah, it sounds really cool. I'm really liking it. Chat, you got any other comments, questions, ideas, thoughts? If this is your track, what are you going to change? What are you going to do to it? And if anybody else is just joining us and would like to share a track, you can click on the link that is pinned up to the top of the chat, and that's where you're going to send it to me. I think next up we got a track from Dig the Cat. Excuse me. Nice, Jason. I feel like this is an updated one of a track we've heard before on the stream, but the arrangement is totally different, or at least fairly different. So I like this track a lot. It's got like super chill, really mellow. I love the use of electric piano. If anytime you're using electric piano, sounds great. I think there's a couple places that need a little bit of love, but I think overall this track is like, it's making sense in terms of where you're going with it. So to start off with the intro, I like the intro quite a bit. I love the little use of static here, the really gentle, mellow notes on the piano. However, I do think the electric piano, when it comes in, is a bit loud. It just kind of takes over everything there. So I think turn that down a tiny bit. I also think putting a little bit of reverb on it might not be the worst thing in the world. Your clap sounds a little bit dry and a little bit out of place, but it's not a huge deal. And then I really love this next section here. Bassline sounds really good. I like the muted kick. Also the muted notes in the background too. Love use of delays and echoes here. Strings sound really good. Basically, this whole section I think is great. The only issue with this section is you build up all of this energy, and then when the drum beat comes back in, it doesn't deliver on that buildup. So you like build this energy, and then the drums come in, and then it doesn't maximize on that. There's a couple things you can do here. Number one is make sure that the build-up section does not get louder than the drum section. Just by looking at the waveform here, it looks like this drum section can be a lot louder. So I'd first try turning that up. So that way, if you build up to this volume and then you deliver at this volume, it's never going to sound impactful. Another thing you can do here that helps out quite a bit is put like either a half a bar or a quarter note of silence in between this buildup and then when the drums come in. And that way you're starting at this volume, go down to this volume real quick, and then right back up. And that also helps kind of reset the energy a bit and helps that transition work a lot better. But right now it just feels like, okay, I'm really excited about what I'm hearing now. I have big expectations. And then it just doesn't deliver there. So I think this section needs to be louder. I also think one or two more elements need to be present during this section. Right now it just doesn't feel like it's fully fleshed out compared to what happened before it. And then once you kind of do the reset here, I think from here on out, it sounds pretty good. I think maybe using some of these strings and tossing them in right here. Well, yeah, more strings here I think will also help kind of like pad out this area and make it feel a little bit more fleshed out. But that's basically it. Those are kind of the main things there. I like the arrangement. I like the just kind of like, it's kind of chill and mellow. It reminds me of like, I don't know, like driving down like by the coast somewhere. And like, this is like, could be a good song to be listening to. But yeah, that transition there, a little bit less volume here. And then I forget the other thing I said was. Bishop, I wish that there was a key command for that. That would be great. But yeah, I think it sounded pretty good. Just a few minor things to tweak here and there, mostly with this transition. But once you nail this transition and really kind of like build out this final section, I think you're going to be pretty good to go. All right, so at this point, I believe I've gotten through Control Z. That's probably the closest thing. I believe I've gotten through at least one track from everybody who has sent me one. So we got at least two tracks from people who have sent me two. I got one from After Party and one from Gauntya. But at this point, I would like to invite anybody who is just joining us to submit a track, or anybody else out there who wants to send me a track, and now would be a time to do that. All right, but we're gonna do a second track from After Party, and then Gauntya we will do the your other track. Sorry, feedback loop. Sorry about that. Sorry, feedback loops. All right, let's try this one more time. Nice. Sounds really good. Fits with the visuals really well. You knew this was coming, but I'm gonna get on you about those drums. Your snare has too much reverb. Yeah, it's just a little bit too much decay on the reverb and a little bit too much on the dry wet on the reverb there, although the sound of the snare is really nice. And then your kick, I have got mixed feelings about. I feel like it's a little bit too distorted and a little bit too much on the low end. But not by much. It's like really close to being there, but it's just got like a little bit too much of that kind of like thuddy kind of thing. But other than that, I really like it. Those are literally the only two things I have feedback on here. For homework, though, I got a couple ideas for you. Number one, listen to the DJ Shadow album Introducing, and just listen to his drum beats really closely, because I feel like those kind of like old school breakbeat sampled drums that are kind of like chopped up and developed a little bit more would fit your style of music perfectly, especially like stuff like this, where it's kind of like synth wavy, but also a little bit lo-fi, but also a little bit hip hoppy. Like, I think that those kind of like old school drum bass style drum sounds will go really, really well. The other homework assignment I have for you, besides listening to that DJ Shadow album, is just write like 10 beats with nothing else, like no synths. Your synth stuff is sounding really solid. Your melody's sounding really good. Your mixing on your synths is sounding really solid. Your sound design is sounding super on point. But every single time, it's those drum beats that are the thing that like hold you back a little bit. So just write 10 beats with no synths, no bass lines, no melodies. Just write 10 beats in a row, and just see what you can do, and make them all different styles, different tempos, just to get some practice, and see if that affects your opinion a little bit, or not your opinion, but like affects your style and your workflow when it comes to writing beats for all the synth parts you come up with. But yeah, I think like I said, those are literally the only two things here that I would change. I love the crispness of it. The synths sound really good. The bass line sounds really good. Love those hats come in. Love the guitar. Like everything else about this is pretty much done. It's just little tiny changes on your drum beat and drum production stuff. I was expecting the beat to come in one more time. And then back to the drum beat. I think that's fine either way, but I also wouldn't mind if there's one more drum beat that came in right at that like 2-minute mark. But yeah, sounding really good. Just work on those beats and really work on those like in general, your beats are good. It's just little tiny details in your beats that stick out to me. And the only reason they stick out to me is because everything else in the song sounds basically polished and ready to go. All right, we got a track from Bishop coming up in just a second. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. I'm gonna fade out just because he said I don't need to listen to the whole thing. But this is dope. I love this. This is so fucking cool. I think you're more than welcome to just put a remix track in there if you want. It's not a huge deal in terms of no remix rule. But go ahead and toss the link in the spreadsheet. And if anybody else is just joining us and would like to get some feedback, click on the link up at the top of the chat, and I will get to it as soon as possible. So this track is sick. Super innovative, really cool, interesting stuff going on. I love the rhythm juggling, like the cuts and chops feel like they keep on changing and doing different things with timing, and I'm all in favor of that. I think there are a couple of things that you could look at. Obviously, arrangement, you need to like have this kind of flow from one idea to the next. But in terms of what you already have going on, this is going to be really tricky to mix and make it still sound good. I think that you have a lot of really big, loud elements, and they're all fighting with each other. And I think because the rhythm is such a central part of this, you want to make sure that those drums just like cut through everything. So that's going to be tricky. I'm just going to warn you, mixing this is going to be a massive pain. The other thing I think you'll need to watch out for is you'll have a lot of these big, choppy sounds that then also have a bunch of reverb on them. And those reverbs are extending out into other sounds and creating a lot of clutter in there. So I like that a lot of these big choppy sounds have that reverb, but I'd be really careful not to overwhelm your mix with reverb and really dial back some of those decay times on that reverb. Otherwise, it's just going to wash out the whole thing, and it's going to make an already difficult task of mixing this even more difficult. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit and listen to a few things, but I like what you have going on quite a bit. Yeah, you're gonna have to really dial back some of those reverbs, I think, unfortunately, even though they sound really cool. I don't necessarily think, Bishop, this needs a lot of melodic elements. I think you could, if you wanted to, put some melodic elements in there, but I think that for the most part, just let it be what it is. It's just heavy rhythm and noise and sounds that are going back and forth, and I think that's a totally legit way to go. I do think it'd be kind of interesting if you did have a few more higher pitched rhythmic things going on, like some hi-hats, some shakers. They don't even need to be like straight up regular hi-hats or shakers, but like take industrial metallic hits. I know Native Instruments has a bunch of metallic hits in their sample libraries, just of like people hitting, you know, tin cans or pots and pans or whatever, those kinds of things, and using those to create faster percussive things that are happening in between the like big heavy rhythmic parts. Could be a cool way to like have some contrast there. And I think that you know, the big thing this track is missing, like I said, is like an arrangement where you go back and forth between big and heavy and then minimal and laid back. And you do that a little bit over here. This part's really cool. More elements like that where it kind of like shifts and changes over time. Even doing things like just keeping the basic, you know, wall of sound that you have, and having certain sounds that are filtered in some parts, like really heavy low pass filters or high pass filters, and then you swap them around. So different sounds have different kind of levels of energy and amounts they're taking up space in the mix. And I think if you did want to add melodic elements in here, they could be really fast and choppy little blips, leaps and bloops and things like that that you kind of like chop up and toss in between what you have already going. But yeah, those are the main things I'm thinking here. I would kind of like this to start with, okay, so it's the spectral time and the reverb that they're doing that. That's also going to make it interesting. Yeah, you might have to do a bunch of resampling here, and like resample different variations into audio, and then you can put effects on them separately. And I think that'd be really cool. If it were up to me, I would probably start this track really minimal, just like super mellow, and then over the course of a couple minutes, it builds and builds and builds and builds until you get to the point where you have like all the things going on and everything's going crazy. But yeah, I'm digging it. Sorry, Gaunt, yeah, I know you have another track in there, but I just want to make sure people who have not yet sent a track in today get their tracks heard. We'll get back to yours in probably after this one.
Can you leave now?
Nice, that was dope. I'm gonna listen one more time just because there's a lot of stuff going on here in a very short period of time.
Can you leave now?
Nice, that's pretty dope. I like it. So a lot of stuff going on here. I think the biggest thing that I'm noticing right now, and you may or may not have started to mix this yet, but it does sound like the mix is all over the place. Some sounds are way too quiet, some sounds are way too loud, and it's hard. It seems like it's hard to find like a middle ground for a lot of these things, especially some of like the sound effects in this later section here. They're just not cutting through. Like a lot of those like little samples of people talking or saying things are getting way kind of lost in the mix. So make sure you bring those up for sure. And then the other big thing that I noticed was during the intro-ish or earlier parts of this track, you have this really kind of like hollow sounding snare thing that I feel like could use a little bit of layering. It sounds cool, but it doesn't sound super impactful. So if it were up to me, I would probably layer that up a little bit and maybe process it a little bit more. And like that distorted kick comes in a little bit too loud compared to everything else. So maybe turn that one down. Reminds me of Sean Wasabi a little bit, where it's just like, it's just chaos. There's lots of things going on, but you do a really good job of making the chaos flow from one idea to the next. And I think that that works. It seems like it's a really difficult task to do that. And I feel like you're nailing it already. Yeah, then yeah, just clear up the mix in this last section here. But yeah, those are the really kind of the big things I was noticing. A little bit more attention and on some of those vocal samples in the second half, a little bit more love on that snare, and a little bit less of that distorted kick when it first comes in. Later on, it's fine, but the first couple of hits feel a little bit out of place. Yeah, I think the different kick layers and jumping back and forth between them is fine because there's so much chaos going on that it just kind of like, it adds to the chaos, and I think it works fine for me. It was just those first couple of kicks right here. Let me go back a little bit. Those ones there. Yeah, sounds cool. I'm assuming that this is just a draft and you're going to keep on expanding this arrangement, or are you going to keep it being like a 53-second song? Either one's fine, but I think I would be curious to kind of see where you go with this if you keep going and move it into like a 3 or 4 minute arrangement and just do a bunch of weird kind of breakcore glitchy things as you go on. Yeah, chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Let me know in chat. I appreciate you sharing that thing. It sounds cool. It's very different than a lot of the stuff we've been getting on the channel recently. I also like the like weird breakcore-esque gabber is kind of making a comeback a little bit, it seems like, with the kids these days, which I'm super in favor of. All right, I'm gonna turn this back down because it's another Gauntya song, which means it's gonna be way louder than everybody else. Yeah, I dig it. Sounds really good to me. I'm curious what kind of vocals you're thinking of putting on here, because I think that'll make a big difference in terms of what kind of feedback I want to give you. If it were up to me, if this were my track, so first off, the hi-hats too loud, turn those down a little bit. And then the synthy layer that's right around here, the one that's kind of chopping, that guy, that could be a bit louder. in most of the song. So if this was my track, the two things I think this are missing are, number one, some kind of Middle Eastern instrument, like an oud or even like a Turkish ney or something like that, like a flute or a string playing like a harmonic minor kind of thing. I think that would go really well on this track, and I think it'd sound really dope. The other thing I think you could do, if you are going to add vocals to this, which it sounds like you are, a female MC. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear pop vocals. I don't want to hear some diva vocals. I want to hear like a badass female MC rapping on this, and I think that would make this track perfect. Those two things. Some kind of Middle Eastern instrument. Like I said, it's like either a string or a flute or something like that, and a female MC. And if you do both of those things, then I'll be super stoked about it. But in terms of critical feedback and things you can do, I think it sounds perfect, besides making that one synth louder and making the hi-hats a little bit quieter. Yeah, some kind of like Turkish instrument would be dope. But yeah, female MC rapping on this would be super sick, and I would be really happy about it. I'm gonna listen to the end one more time, but I think that, like, I don't know, it sounds really good. The bass line sounds good, drums sound good. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what kind of vocals you're thinking about doing for this, because I think that if it's just like kind of standard housey vocals, I don't think I'll be as into it. Make sure that when you release this track, if you do put vocals on it, you also release the instrumental, because I think the instrumental sounds really good too. And I appreciate it when people release both, and that way I can jump back and forth between different kinds of tracks. Or I can, when I'm DJing, I can either play the instrumental or the not instrumental, I guess. Sweet. So it looks like we got one late addition to the list. We got a track from Janef. Janef, how you doing? But yeah, that track sounds really dope. Your stuff is sounding really, really polished right now, which is great. And as of right now, I think this is the last track in the list. So if there's any stragglers out there who want to get a track in, now is the time to do it. See you later, Yogi. Nice. I think it sounded really good. I agree with Gaunt. You said your clap side stick is pretty loud throughout the whole thing, so I would definitely tone that down a little bit. I think the couple other things that I noticed. Number one is you had a few points where you have these little noise sweeps. I think there's one over here. Right here. So there's little noise sweeps like that. When it comes back in, it feels like we're starting at one energy level, and then you're using this noise sweep to create an expectation. When it comes back, it's the same energy level. So what I would recommend doing is after both of your noise sweeps, there's one right here and there's one over here somewhere, is add in some extra kick drums. Right now, your kick drums are really spaced out. So kick, 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 kick. I don't know. You could toss in a bunch of extra kick drums in there, and that would make it feel like it's kind of bouncing a little bit more, especially right after those transitions, right? So right now you're just like kick, and then you got like a bunch of space before the next kick happens. So just to kind of increase the energy in those two sections, right after the sweep here and wherever the sweep is over here, a few extra kicks in there will make a big difference. Thanks for coming after party. I'll see you later. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing was, I love your marimba stuff you have got going on. Where's the marimba? I swear you had a marimba section in here somewhere. You can't find it. Oh yeah, these guys. Those little marimba guys, I think it's sound marimba, something like that. More of that. Right now, it seems a little simple what you're doing with it. It's just like bum, 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 bum. There's a lot of potential there for you to like go up an octave, add a few extra notes in between those. Explore specifically that sound, because I think that sound is really cool and gives it like this really nice feel to the rest of the track. So explore that, sound some more, add some more kicks. The other thing is you have some horns over here and over here. The horns are not doing it for me. I think it's partially just because all of the other sounds in your track sound really organic and they sound really rich and they sound very authentic. And those horns sound a little synthetic. They sound like somebody sitting at a MIDI controller and playing horns. So if you can replace those with horns that are not like MIDI horns and have somebody who's actually playing those horns in there, I think that'll make a huge difference. Otherwise, I might consider getting rid of them and maybe doing something else with them. I just think the horns are not at the quality of all the other sounds. Other than that, I really like it. I think it flows really well. Everything sounds really good. More of that guitar in the track could be really good. Yeah, maybe replace those horns with more of the guitar. Cool, feedback loop. But yeah, that kind of is all my feedback there. Let me make sure stream is still working. All right, but yeah, more kick drums, less of the side stick snare clap kind of sound. Maybe get rid of the horns and more of the marimba. Those are kind of the main things I was thinking there. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Sounds really good, man. Your stuff sounds really quality. Anybody else in chat got any thoughts? Let me know. And then real quick, right before we call it for the evening, Gaunt sent me a version of the track with the vocals. I just want to hear what the vocals sound like real quick. Awesome, Jeanette. I'm glad the video is inspiring. That's the whole goal, is to get people trying out new things. All right, let's hear what these vocals sound like. I like the sidechained vocals in the background. Those are working for me. I think the actual vocals themselves are good. I think they can also fit. I don't want to like talk shit about your vocals because I think they work. I'm just really into I don't know. I just think like if you take a listen to one of Apache's new songs with Alina Pash, having this like big kind of bass housey groove with a female MC rapping on top of it works really well. So that's just my biased opinion. But I'll put a link in the chat if you haven't heard this track. That is a huge URL. Let's do this without getting copyright claim. Yeah, check out that track. I feel like those kind of vocals on it, even though her vocals are like not super like rapping, I think those kinds of vocals on it I think would go really well. But I do really like the sidechain vocals you have in there already. Sweet. Well, that I think is going to be it for the evening. Appreciate all you guys coming in and hanging out and sending me your tracks. They've been really dope, and I've very much enjoyed listening to them. But yeah. Yeah, thanks for all the tracks. Thanks for anybody who donated. And I will be back on Monday for an office hours stream as normal. And then Tuesday is going to be the Patreon only stream. And then back next Wednesday for another feedback stream. Yeah, Apache is pretty dope. He's one of the people right now who I super respect in the music production world. His tracks just always sound great. So yeah, you guys have a good evening. Have a good rest of your week. Make some music. Take care of yourselves. And I'll see you guys on Monday.